Give your penthouse to your sister as a wedding gift, my father said into the microphone. His voice boomed across the grand chandelier-lit hall, triumphant and full of calculation. 200 guests, glasses raised for a toast, suddenly froze like wax statues in midair. The music died out. My mother kept her smile plastered on, perfect to the point of being creepy, not flinching an inch. Charlotte, my sister, blinked rapidly, covering her mouth in feigned surprise, acting as if she didn't know this cruel script beforehand. I stood there, gripping the stem of my crystal wine glass, feeling the heat of hundreds of gazes burning into me as if they wanted to incinerate me right there. They were waiting for me to nod. They were waiting for the familiar submission of the obedient daughter. But instead of panicking, begging, or crying like the script they wanted, I just slowly raised the glass to my lips and took a sip filled with pure disdain. My silence in that moment was colder than ice, cutting right through the suffocating atmosphere of coercion. Right then, the harsh sound of a chair scraping against the marble floor rang out. A stranger, dressed in a meticulously tailored gray suit, slowly stood up from the crowd. He looked at no one but my father, his voice steady but sharp as a razor, slicing through the silence. Touch her property again, and you will lose all of yours. The entire room held its breath. My father's jaw tightened, his smile vanished. At a nearby table, a tiny red light on a phone was blinking, the sign of a live stream broadcasting to over 10,000 viewers. That was the moment my family's fake empire began to crumble. Before I take you deeper into that fateful night and show you the sweetest revenge, tell me where you are listening to this story from. Let me know I'm not alone in this fight to reclaim my dignity. I used to think silence was peace, that if I smiled at the right time and nodded at the right place, my family would see me as one of them. But peace built on silence shatters very quickly, especially in a house full of hypocrisy and hollow glitz like mine. My parents were obsessed with appearances to a sick degree. My mother, Carol, believed perfection was like a table centerpiece. It had to be trimmed, polished, and shown off to the world. My father, Richard, lived for applause. And Charlotte, my sister, was their masterpiece, the golden child who could do no wrong. And me? I was just a line item on the family balance sheet. Not sparkly enough to show off, but too important to throw away. Whenever relatives asked about my job, Mom would give a dismissive laugh, a tone light but full of condescension. Oh, Isabella does something in finance. She never mentioned that I was the Vice President of Regional Development for Asia Pacific, that my signature could move millions of dollars in a heartbeat. To her, a woman's success was meaningless if it didn't come with a rich husband. Charlotte, on the other hand, didn't have to try to shine. She spoke softly, looked radiant, the standard of a good daughter. She often called me big sister in front of guests, not out of respect, but like I was an accessory, a prop to highlight her fake modesty. I played that supporting role for years, an expensive role. I was the one silently paying to maintain the family's hollow image. I paid off the mortgage when Dad's business failed, wired money to Mom for emergency bills, and even transferred a quick $50,000 to cover Charlotte's lavish wedding. They never asked twice. They just took it naturally, as if it was a duty I was born to shoulder. My silence was a blank check they had been overdrawing on for a long time. The week before the wedding, Dad pulled me into a corner. His voice was low, feigning intimacy, but his eyes held a cold warning. You'll sit in the front row. It's family after all. But remember, this is Charlotte's day. Keep things simple. I laughed bitterly alone in my car, remembering that moment. Simple. He had no idea how brutally the definition of simple was about to change for this family. The rehearsal dinner took place under soft yellow lights covering thousands of pure white roses. Everything was perfect, designed for Instagram photos, And of course, all paid for by me. Mom was busy adjusting Charlotte's veil, while Dad was too busy shaking hands with investors to greet relatives. I leaned against the bar, separated from that picture of happiness, back to being an invisible but expensive shadow. Then Charlotte turned to me, her smile sweet as saccharine. "Issa, thanks again for helping us with the costs," she said, her volume perfectly calibrated so a few nearby tables could hear. I felt the sharp sarcasm in the word, helping. She didn't say I paid for everything. She deliberately downgraded my massive sacrifice to a petty act of assistance. Dad nodded approvingly from afar. That's how they operated. Public gratitude sounded generous but was actually a weapon to minimize my status. I swallowed the bitterness with a gulp of wine, telling myself it was just one more night. I would show up, sit silently, and play my part. I never suspected that behind those glossy smiles, my family had written my name into tomorrow's script not as a guest of honor, but as a sacrificial lamb. I was the mandatory opening act to make Charlotte's perfection complete. The wedding morning was suspiciously bright. The golden sunlight made everything look innocent. But beneath the perfect veneer of fresh flowers and chilled champagne, my intuition felt a skipped beat. My gut always knew things my mind hadn't yet caught up with. I arrived at the hotel lobby early. The smell of white lilies was thick in the air, so dense it was nauseating. Staff buzzed around like worker bees, busy draping fabrics and polishing glasses. My mother's sharp voice cut through the chaos. "Remember to angle Charlotte's bouquet to the left. That profile looks better on camera." It wasn't a request. It was a command. She was directing a movie, not a wedding. As I walked past the reception desk, I stopped. There was a man standing motionless in the rushing crowd, observing everything with a chilling calmness. He wore a charcoal gray suit, a silver-accented tie, looking poised and completely out of place among the frivolous guests. When our eyes met, I froze. He gave a slight, polite nod, then walked closer, whispering a sentence just loud enough to send a chill down my spine. "Be careful with what they announced today." His tone was even, almost kind, but carried the weight of a sentence. Then he turned and vanished into the crowd as if he never existed, leaving me rooted to the spot with dread clinging to my skin. Before I could wonder if I imagined it, the phone in my hand buzzed violently. A text from an unknown number appeared on the screen. "They are going to take what is yours tonight. Don't let them." The words punched me in the chest. I panicked, looking around. Dad was still laughing at the bar. Mom was adjusting Charlotte's dress train. My heart raced. The penthouse. It was the only thing that was entirely mine. Every brick was paid for by sleepless nights and blood-sweat contracts. Would they dare go that far? Just as the panic began to subside, my parents' familiar whispers drifted through the cracked door of a nearby VIP lounge. I should have kept walking, but survival instinct froze my feet. I pressed myself against the cold wall, holding my breath to listen. My father's voice was low and calculating, like he was closing a shady deal. "During the toast, we'll make the announcement. It will make Charlotte's gift unforgettable." My mother giggled, a sound colder than the air conditioning. "And Isabella won't dare refuse. Too many cameras, too many witnesses. Sometimes pride is useful." Then came Charlotte's voice, sounding hesitant but hiding naked greed. "Are you guys sure she'll be okay with this?" My mother's answer was like poison-laced honey. "She doesn't need that space. She has her job. That's enough. But you deserve a home." The blood drained from my face. This wasn't simple favoritism. This was organized robbery. They were planning to steal my only sanctuary, the penthouse I had bled to build, and parade it around as a gesture of sisterly love. They were weaponizing my own honor against me. Through the crack in the door, the chandelier light danced on their conspiratorial smiles. Every cell in my body screamed to barge in, to scream. to smash this absurdity. But I didn't walk in. I didn't utter a word. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the daughter who would react with weak emotion. I became a witness, the one who would remember everything. The calm that wrapped around me wasn't peace. It was the deadly stillness of a loaded gun. Wait. Before I tell you about my cold counterattack plan, pause for a second. Have you ever accidentally overheard your loved ones plotting to betray you behind your back? Comment yes or no below. The truth is sometimes more painful than any lie, but it's the only thing that wakes us up. I went back to my room without a word. The hotel hallway smelled of roses mixed with the scent of expensive anxiety. Inside the room, the air was thick, tense like the calm before a storm. I set my phone on the marble table and opened the drawer where I kept my only weapon, a thin file folder containing the weight of the entire truth. Receipts, bank statements, ownership papers, tax records. Every number, every signature was undeniable proof of my 10 years of hard labor. My parents didn't build that house. They never stayed up all night tracking international time zones or chasing contracts that almost killed me with exhaustion. They only knew how to spend what they never sweated to earn. With a numbness bordering on paralysis, I took photos of every document and sent them to my private lawyer with a short, emotionless text. Be ready at 8 p.m., Ballroom A. No explanation, no complaining, just the command of someone about to pull the trigger. Then I took off the bland pastel bridesmaid dress Mom had chosen to make me fade into the background for Charlotte. I put on a deep navy blue evening gown, sharp tailoring, stiff and cold like a suit of armor. I didn't intend to blend into the crowd anymore. Looking in the mirror, I almost didn't recognize the woman staring back. The exterior was calm, but beneath the makeup was a sharp blade waiting to be unsheathed. I put on my diamond earrings, a gift I bought myself after saving a division of the company. Tonight, they weren't jewelry. They were a stark reminder of who I was before they tried to strip me of everything. Down in the grand hall, the party had started with suffocating opulence, the clinking of crystal glasses, the buzz of laughter mixed with melodious string music. It was all so polished it made me nauseous. I glided through the crowd like a ghost, my heels clicking rhythmically on the cold tiled floor. My father clapped his hands to get attention, asking everyone to settle down for a toast. It was time. I chose a table in a dark corner but with the clearest view of the stage. I raised my wine glass to eye level, hiding a faint, bitter smile. If they wanted a show, they were about to get an ending that wasn't in the rehearsal script. The sound of a silver spoon tapping against glass rang out 3 times, sharp and cold, cutting through the noise. My father stood center stage, gripping the microphone, his silver cufflinks gleaming proudly under the chandelier. The strength of a family, he began with a fake warm voice, is not measured by what we keep, but by what we share. My hand tightened around the stem of the glass pressing hard into my palm. And tonight, he continued, his eyes sweeping the crowd with arrogance, we have something extraordinary to celebrate. My eldest daughter, Isabella, has decided to gift her penthouse to her sister as a wedding present. The words dropped into the banquet room like a grenade. Thunderous applause erupted before I could even breathe. Gasps and whistles rang out. Unbelievable! Flashbulbs popped continuously, capturing the moment designed to turn me into a docile, generous sheep. My father waved me over, his tone urging, "Come up here, daughter, don't be shy." Hundreds of heads turned to look at me simultaneously, expecting submission. But I didn't stand up. I didn't say a word. Instead, I looked straight into his eyes and slowly took a sip of wine, my demeanor terrifyingly calm. The smile on my father's lips began to distort. The silence that covered the room after that cold sip was heavier than any scream. The smile on my father's face vanished, replaced by naked confusion. Just as the tension reached its breaking point, a harsh sound rang out. Metal chair legs screeching against the marble floor. In the corner of the room, the man with the silver-accented tie stood up. His presence wasn't loud, but it was overwhelming, like a massive iceberg amidst a sea of shallow people. "Touch her property one more time." His voice was low but echoed to the very ends of the hall, sharp and unforgiving. "And you will lose, all of yours." The entire auditorium froze. The blood drained from my father's face. My mother blinked, panic starting to seep through her thick layer of powder. William walked up with steady steps, his shoes clicking like a judge's gavel. "William Carter," he introduced himself, pulling a sleek black business card from his pocket. "CEO of Carter Financial." Whispers erupted like a broken beehive. William didn't stop. He pointed toward me, where I was calmly holding up the navy blue folder full of ownership documents in my left hand, a silent act carrying the weight of 1,000 pounds, asserting absolute control. "The penthouse you are trying to seize is part of her legal executive compensation package, protected by strict anti-coercion clauses." My father tried to laugh, a twisted and desperate smile. "It's just a family misunderstanding." William cut him off coldly, his eyes like blades. "A misunderstanding that is being live-streamed to over 10,000 viewers right now." Every head snapped toward the nearby table. My cousin's phone was propped up, the red recording light glowing like a bloodshot, unblinking eye, shining straight onto their greed. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is the true face of exploitation when it is disguised as family love," William declared, his voice booming like a final judgment. As soon as the accusation ended, the consequences hit instantly like falling dominoes. Mr. Patterson, my father's biggest partner, shot up, his face pale with rage. "Richard," he said loudly, his voice steely, "I invested in your company because I believed in your ethics. But after this pathetic charade, Patterson Industries is suspending all cooperation immediately." Next was Mrs. Williams from Logistics, then David Kim, his oldest associate. All stood up in unison to announce their withdrawal. The fake empire my father spent his life building collapsed in less than 2 minutes. Charlotte burst into tears, her makeup smeared, her magnificent wedding dress now looking like a rag. I took a step forward, facing the ruin, my voice strangely calm. "You wanted an impressive show, Dad? You got your wish." That sentence was the last straw. My mother, a woman who worshipped perfection and faced her whole life, suddenly lost all reason. She lunged at me, her eyes veined with madness, completely shedding her mask of nobility. "You dare humiliate me!" she hissed, and swung her hand with all her might. Slap! The sound of the slap rang out, piercing the chaotic atmosphere. My head turned slightly to the side, my cheek burning like it was on fire. But I didn't cry, I didn't hold my face, and I didn't back down. I just slowly turned back to look at her, my eyes cold and empty as an abyss. My silence in that moment was more terrifying than anger. William immediately stepped in to block her, calmly holding the microphone right up to my mother's face. "Do you want to explain that act of violence to the 10,000 witnesses watching the live stream?" She trembled, looked at the blinking red light accusing her, and then she collapsed completely. That slap was the final period ending all ties, but I want to ask you, do you think she deserved to be exposed in front of thousands like that? Or should I have saved a little face for the woman who gave birth to me? Don't hesitate. Leave your honest thoughts right now. The resolution. As the ballroom doors closed behind me, I heard one last sound, a crystal glass hitting the floor and shattering, the sound signaling the total collapse of a family empire. William stood beside me, asking quietly, "Are you okay?" I adjusted the pleats of my navy dress, inhaled deeply the free air of the night, and replied curtly, "I'm fine," because I've stopped apologizing. The next morning, the 1-minute clip, capturing everything from Dad's greedy announcement to Mom's crazy slap and William's sharp intervention, went viral on every platform. Headlines called it the wedding scandal that destroyed a dynasty. The fallout came faster and more brutally than any scenario I imagined. Partners pulled contracts, and my father's company stock evaporated, losing half its value in just 48 hours. My mother tried to go online to play the manipulated victim, but was instantly drowned out by thousands of comments criticizing the violence the whole world had witnessed. And Charlotte? The perfect marriage shattered before it began. The groom's family called off the wedding, not wanting to be associated with a scandalous liability. I sat in my penthouse, watching the city lights twinkle through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The glass walls they once plotted to steal now reflected my absolute freedom. I accepted an invitation to the board of directors at Carter Financial. Not for revenge, but to rebuild myself from the ashes of the past. I realized the best revenge isn't screaming, it's living a life they can never touch again. If you have ever had to stand alone against people called family who wanted to strip you of everything, know that you are not alone. What would you do if you were forced to sacrifice your life's biggest asset in front of 200 people? Share your story and how you handled it in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, because the next story about silent justice might just be yours.